fan of the Sonic the Hedgehog series, like a lot of people. I narrowed them down to the classic Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon shows, though, because I think that the rest that Sega had spawned out throughout the years was rat crap. Each to their own, I guess. I was browsing eBay the other day, and I wondered if there would be any items about my favorite character from the series, Sally.exe. Indeed, what I did find was a plushie that was manufactured in Sega World of Sydney, which closed down due to the lack of visitors in 2006. Those Sally plushies were very rare, but I didn't have the money to buy her, and my parents would despise me for it if I bought it. I examined the thing for a while as the article came with pictures. This Sally even had her jacket. On it was written in permanent marker, God. I don't know what it meant, probably just the initials of the child owning her before they sold her. I clicked the back button to return to the Sonic Sally search, knowing I wouldn't win the auction anyway, only to find another article that had appeared. Sonic.exe cartoon all episodes, with the price of $1 on instant buy. Sonic.exe DVDs were never released where I came from. Bummer. So, as happy as I was, I wanted to rewatch the show and check out the article. It had no description and no address where it came from. It was nowhere from Germany, the United States, Canada, etc. It was missing, and the shipping price was stated to be free. I looked up at the photo of the article. It was a blank CD. I decided to buy it anyway. Not really just for the nostalgia, but the writing was great, and I loved Robotnik in the series. Well, it all started when the mail arrived. It arrived the next morning. Oddly, it was a Sunday. I was happy to receive the episodes and immediately put the blank CD into my laptop, starting the DVD. Sadly, the DVD didn't start but offered me to show the files. So I opened up the folder and saw it a Sally.exe application. I was confused at it being an exe file, but I started it anyway, and indeed, it was playing a Sat.im episode. The episode Hooked on Sonics began. The episode started auto normal, along with the intro. No blood or anything. But the sad thing was that my computer blue screened when the kissing scene of Sonic and Sally started. When Sally walked over to Sonic to kiss his cheek, he calls her kiss not so good and grants her a better one. And it was so cute too. The computer rebooted and I took out the CD as I thought it had malfunctioned and threw it away. I could have asked the person to give me my money back, but he can keep the $1 I gave him. I mean, it was just $1. I continued to normally browse the internet, speaking and talking to friends on Skype and everything. Nothing was wrong until I was watching a random YouTube video. My cursor, the white arrow in case you didn't know, started to completely spaz out. I disconnected my mouse, but the cursor continued to thrash around the screen. I even deactivated my touchpad and it continued. Suddenly it came to a stop and I carried on, ignoring what had happened. Soon I found myself downloading a ROM for Sonic the Hedgehog. Fun game. As soon as it had downloaded, I started up my emulator and began the game in windowed mode. But oddly, the complete screen was black. I shrugged it off and waited for the game to start. The familiar Sega jingle didn't sound. Well, I mean it did, but it was slowed down so much that it sounded demonic, and it gave me a cringe. The background remained black and Sonic didn't run past the logo. It faded to black and some text appeared. I thought it was a red font, but it looked like it had scratched on my computer screen. Up for round 2? I blinked and flinched as the main screen came up. The sky was a dark gray and the clouds looked dull and black, like right before a thunderstorm. The mountains were decayed and so was the logo. It even looked partially rusted. I was amazed at the pixel detail. What also scared me was Sega 1991 was replaced with Sega 666, and the water was a bloody red. The familiar music wasn't playing either. It was just a 16-bit mess of sounds and the demonic Sega occasionally mixed in. Instead of Sonic showing up, 2 characters appeared next to the logo, Sonic and Tails. The sight of them terrified me even more. Tails' eyes were black and they were bleeding. His hair had become a dull gray/black as well as he had an expression of anguish on his face. Knuckles looked far worse. His red fur was darkened to a reddish gray. His dreadlocks were dripping with blood, and his eyes were black and bleeding like Tails, and he had a look of sadness on his face. Just then, I noticed that a new character popped up out of the middle of the logo, a pink, bubbly little hedgehog pointing her head out. At first, she was smiling, but then frowned at what was around her. She looked confused and nervous, like she didn't know what was going on. Amy Rose? I thought. What the heck was all this about? Curiosity drove me to press enter. A short yet loud static noise interrupted the screen and it faded. I wish I hadn't done so. Kyle didn't want to play with me. The writing appeared again. What a shame. But I can play with you, right? Now, the demonic Sega jingle sounded again for a split second, and the image flashed. It disappeared too fast and I couldn't make it out, but I could swear I saw a red and black Sonic with black and red eyes. I almost felt them pierce me as that moment made me jump. It didn't begin in the Green Hill Zone, Act 1 though. I wish it did. Instead, the title card read, Not Perfect, Act 1. The game began. The ground looked like the normal Green Hill Zone, but the background was pitch black. Amy stood normally where Sonic would be at in the original game. Surprisingly, that was a well-made sprite. It wasn't her classic self, but her current self, and it looked official even. On the opposite side of the screen where Amy was at, there was a large silver ring. In front of the ring stood the sprite of Sonic with a smile on his face. The animation of Amy standing there was that she stared forward with a lovely dovey expression as hearts came up from her head and there. I guess I should have headed to Sonic, I thought as I moved towards Amy towards Sonic. But Sonic ran away and jumped into the ring. I made Amy leap right after him. The level teleported to one of those stages where you can get one of the Chaos Emeralds. The background was pink and love hearts all over. It looked cute, but I was distracted by only having 4 red/white colored spheres to jump on, and then I tried to balance Amy on top of it as she desperately tried to keep on to the spheres. But my control slipped and Amy fell. I fell into a wall of gold spheres. Just as I thought I had teleported back, a loud screech sounded from this image of it. The demonic Sonic flashed all over the screen. And the screen completely spazzed out, and I heard shrieks. Loud shrieks from what I could swear was Amy Rose herself. I kept hearing, "No! No!" and loud cries of agony and pain, which abruptly ended with more static and split moments and the screen cut to black. Soon the title screen appeared again. Knuckles and Tails were missing, but instead Amy appeared. She was smiling her usual cute smile, but her body had holes. Not bleeding holes or bullet holes, just holes that pierced her body all over. Her colors faded to a dull black and white. Even her eyes looked oddly disfigured. It scared me so much my entire body began to itch. I scratched myself over and over as I watched a new character appear. I frowned upon seeing Cream, who had a sheer terrified expression and huddled against the logo for comfort. Poor Cream. I wanted to quit the game, but as it forced, I hit start again and the screen faded. Kind and Fair, Act 1. The stage was blank now and the background music was drowning sounding. It was a slower version of the Green Hill Zone. Nearly made me gag, but something forced me to play. The stage began and Cream's sprite was like Amy's. Very well done. The environment was childish, it looked like a cute cutout. In front of Cream was a TV box that gave you higher speed. I made Cream crouch down and do a spin dash and dashed ahead, crashing the box. The level didn't change. The ground was a solid platform, and seemed like Cream was going faster and faster as she crashed more boxes, and more, and more, and I noticed that the music was completely out of sync, which scared me. Suddenly, Cream crashed into a wall of spikes and a loud splat sounded, which didn't even sound like it would belong on a 16-bit game. Poor Cream was torn to shreds. Blood dripped from the spikes, and the bloodied rabbit at the background slowly began to melt in front of my eyes. The image flashed again, and soon the title screen appeared. As expected, I was back in the title screen, and Cream appeared with Amy. She didn't look scared, but her other eye was, how do I put it? Droopy and dead, and bled a black goo. Her ears were over her face now instead of her back of her head. Her color scheme changed from brown to an orange to a very, very dark purple and red. Her dress was a dull gray. It was time for the third character. And my god, did I wanted to cry and weep when I saw Sally.exe pop out from that goddamn logo, putting on her innocent smile as she walked away and waved towards me, like she didn't know what torture would happen to her. The game was so terrifying and yet so fascinating. but I wanted to stop real badly, but my hands wouldn't budge. I even started shaking. I wanted to reach out for the power button and turn the damn thing off, but my hand just wouldn't move, and before I knew it, I already hit the screen fading. Underscore Act 9, it said. A sad, dull melody played from the background as a silhouette on the ground. A sprite silhouette that resembled Sally appeared in front of the background that consisted of the whole group. Amy, Cream, Knuckles, Tails, and Robotnik appeared, all in their tortured forms with a saddened expression. It also had Sonic, but nearly an unrecognizable way. He had a wide grin on his face with razor-sharp teeth. He had black eyes with red dots for pupils, which were bleeding. It looked like he would reach out of the silhouette in front of him. I tried to move Sally and get her out of there, but each wall wouldn't budge, and Sally was doing a pushing animation. I stopped in the middle, and to my horror, the stage began to shrink as the black started to close in on Sally. I tried moving her again, but the walls wouldn't budge or move anymore. I walked Sally back to the middle of the walls as they closed in on her. She crouched down, but before she completely disappeared into the black, splat! The red writing appeared on the screen again, only it was dripping like blood and was crooked. Sonic, my love. Suddenly a familiar scene faded in. I recognized it immediately. Sonic's Sat-I-Am was playing from where the CD had cut off. It had a reddish shade, and Sonic had those black, bleeding, demonic eyes. Sally looked even worse, at least to me. Her eyes were missing, and they were taken out, and Sally's skull was sewed closed again. Blood was running from her wounds, and it didn't look photoshopped. It was actually animated. Sonic built Sally over like in the show, only tentacle-like things bursted out of her mouth and locked, making disgusting slurping noises. I could even see them bulge in Sally's throat. Worst thing was that they even looked like they were enjoying it, and for a moment, I thought I was too. I could even see the corrupt Tails and Knuckles in the background too. Sonic pulled away. So? Not bad, Sally simply replied. I gagged and looked away from the screen. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something on my bed. On my bed was the Sally doll I saw on eBay, with its eyes missing. And that, my little shadows, was Sally.exe, the somewhat unofficial sequel to Sonic.exe. My final thoughts on the story? Okay, a little bit of a backstory before I actually get into this review. I actually do remember when this story officially came out. I think I was around 14, 15, I think, when it actually did. Maybe a little bit, younger, I guess. I don't know. Let me look at the date here. Yeah, I have no idea, to be honest. But I do remember this story itself being around back when I was around, say, like, I think 14 or something. And I think then I had already read Sonic.exe a couple of times at this point. So, of course, Sally.exe was a story that, I actually thought was interesting at that time. I actually liked the story. And I thought that it was a well-made sequel to Sonic.exe. And the screenshots and everything else like such, further helped, with the story and everything. Now, of course, that was me back then. And this is me now, and this leads me to my review. This story was actually, I think, a lot worse than Sonic.exe. With a couple of exceptions, but I think I'm going to get into what I did not like about the story. For one, the story itself really doesn't have a whole lot of build-up. At least not in regards to how the original Sonic.exe actually had. Now, like with Sonic.exe, at least it kind of helped build up to the whole thing. It didn't automatically just throw yourself into it. And, I mean, I guess I could probably say the same thing with this, but I don't really know what to say, though. I mean, when I read the whole thing with the permanent marker saying God on it, I was like, really? Why? Why would you add that? It's not scary, it's just stupid. And I mean, then there was the whole freaking, Sonic DVDs and things like that at the price of $1, which I don't know what to say about that, to be honest. I mean, Ugh, my god. I mean, the biggest issue I can certainly say when it comes to the story is the fact that, oh god, I don't. All right. For one, the story itself lacks the visuals that Sonic.exe had. With the sole exception, however, that this one actually has pictures. I will give it that. The person that made the screenshots did very, very well with making it. I will admit to that. And the game itself is actually a pretty decent game. Is it scary? No. But is it decent? Yes. Very well made for a fan-made Sonic game, I'll admit. However, despite all of that, the rest of the story itself is just a big giant cliche mess, and pretty much rips off a lot of aspects of Sonic.exe. I mean, I'm not joking. The entire thing is nothing more but a ripoff of Sonic.exe and doesn't add anything more to the story. I mean, maybe there was like a couple things that were a bit different, I'll admit, but for the most part, it's all the same. I mean, I get it, it's supposed to be like a sequel more or less to Sonic.exe, but the author could have done something different to try and, make it something new, but also tie into the original story as well. I mean, that's exactly what you do if you're going to make a tribute or like a sequel more or less to a creepypasta. You have to make it seem as though that you put a lot of effort into it to make it its own story, but also tie in well with the original story. And I mean, it's disappointing. I mean, but getting back to what I said about the story itself not being very well detailed, which is another problem with the story. I mean, at least Sonic.exe actually had really good visuals to it in regards to the writing. This one doesn't. I mean, it doesn't exactly have a whole lot to it. I mean, I couldn't really visualize it as best as I could without having to take a look at the pictures. And that's, like I said, it's extremely unfortunate. And you know that a story is... I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I mean, I understand what the author was trying to do, but this story really needed to be, improved on a lot more. And the whole plushie thing, my goodness, why did it add that? Why did it add the stupid plushie thing? I mean, the person didn't obviously order it from eBay. I mean, why is it there? Why is there a Sally plushie with no eyes? Why does that exist? Why was it made? Can somebody please explain that to me? I mean, at least with Sonic.exe, we kind of get a little bit of a reason, although not much, of why there was a plushie there. This one, it just pops out of nowhere. I mean, why? And even then, it ruined the story completely. Like with Sonic.exe, this plushie thing ruined the story. But then again, though, the rest of the story was already bad enough as it is. And if anything, to the author, you really should have done a lot more to make this story better, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be much of the case. And that sucks. This person could have put so much more effort into the story, but decided to just take Sonic.exe and put Sally in it, and there you go. Not make it its own story, not make it its own concept, none of that. It's lazy, it's pathetic, and it's just downright terrible. I never understood why I actually thought the story was a good sequel, because... And this is gonna sound so crazy when I say this, but this is an insult to the original Sonic.exe. I know the original Sonic.exe is not good, but compared to this story, Sonic.exe is a freaking masterpiece in regards to Sally.exe. And it's an insult that this person wanted to even consider this an unofficial sequel. The only thing I can really say that this sequel did good was make a game for it. And that's close to about it. I can't really give it much else. But like I always say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own thoughts. My final rating of the story, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. I mean, I appreciate the pictures and the screenshots being put in there, and obviously that the author or the artist made a lot of effort to make that, and I commend the author for doing that, because it was a really good adaptation to it. However, the rest of the story, though, falls extremely flat. It's nothing else more but a carbon copy and a terrible version of Sonic.exe, and more importantly, it just really needed, I don't know, the author didn't really put a whole lot of time and effort into the story. It's kind of obvious from that. The plushie story itself ruined it, and to be completely honest, if it was up to me, I would have completely rewritten this entire thing to not only tie in with the original Sonic.exe, but for it to become its own story. But like I always say, my own thoughts, my own opinions, like that. What did you guys think about the story? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you guys have done to help make the story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode. If you're brand new here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. And, like always, roll the outro because I'm out.
In fear and surprise as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from a fear-gripping, horror-driven, nightmarish, gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way, because your nightmares will come at any day.